Hi, everybody. My name is Hemant, and I'm an alcoholic who hasn't had the first drink today. The grace of God and the help I received from Alcoholics Anonymous. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous under the lashes of alcoholism. I was beaten black and blue. If my life had become a terrible mess, I hated myself. I hated everything. I was down and out totally. I was a disgruntled human being. I was a person in distress. I was bewildered. I was terrorized. I was in despair, and I was totally frustrated. I was a person who really didn't understand what was happening in his life. And I turned my wife and my wife into neurotic. My kids used to be scared of me. So I had become a person absolutely non grata, absolutely non grata here in my. Just a second, please. Yeah, I've become a person totally, no, nobody wanted me around, and that is how I arrived in Alcoholics Anonymous. I had hit a bottom. What that bottom was that I didn't couldn't manage life. I didn't understand what life was about. I didn't want to live anymore. I was totally frustrated. As I said, I was totally RID, restless, irritable, and damaged. I was damaged goods when I came to alcohol. So this is what the first step is talking about. When I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step I admitted that my life was unmanageable, and then I discovered something new. I didn't know how to give up drinking. I drank not wanting to drink. I drank against my will. I drank because I had to drink. I was compelled to drink under the influence of my now alcohol. That friend I had, that crutch I had used, that friend I had, when I turned to, when I was, in the initial period, when I turned to and I said, "Oh my God, I need you." Well, that now that alcoholic, I'll turn into my bitterest foe. It had betraying me everywhere. It was betraying me in my own eyes. I was hungover and I was a drunk. Yeah, I mean, I was garden variety drunk, and I was everything that a drunk can be. And that is when I came to. So I admitted, and that was all that was required in the first step from me, to admit, to surrender to powerlessness, to admit that my life was unmanageable. And then I discovered, just by surrendering, because as William James said, in his Varieties of Spiritual Experience says, so first I had to admit to myself that that I was in despair. Utter calamity had hit me. I was in my life was absolutely over and done with. Utter defeat. I had reached utter defeat. And that is what the first step was about. Now, I also discovered, much to my discomfort, that I couldn't manage to stop drinking on my own. I needed a power greater than myself. This is the first proactive, affirmative step I had to take. And this was an action. The action was that I had to make a decision. Making a decision is very easy. I once told a story about the three thoughts because we've all heard it before. But basically, making a decision and doing nothing doesn't work. I had to make a decision, and I had to take. Once I made the decision, I had to adhere to the decision. And what was that decision? That I can't, and I'm powerless not only about alcohol, I'm powerless about the rest of my life. I'm not very sure if I can get up tomorrow morning or if I'll be alive even an hour from now. That's not in my hands. I'm not, even I'm powerless over everything. And if I'm powerless, who's got the power? That is the God of my understanding. So I had to turn my life and my will and everything to His care, and everything. I had to do it without reservation. If I had any reservations of any type, well, then my recovery was going to be very poor. I may not have started drinking again, but my so the third step is the affirmative step, the first step in which I take a conscious decision to reach out to my higher power, and I say, "My God, I need you." And He is there. He is my Father. I am the child. He is my principal. I am his agent. That whole paragraph on page 62 is such a beautiful paragraph. This is the how and why of it. And I'm glad that I could find a power which helped me stay away from alcohol and live an enriched life, live a life of fulfillment, live a life within which I've become free from the bondage of not only alcohol, resentment, self, but also I'm happy, joyous, and free. And that's what this program is about. The worst thing is that unless and until I take these three steps beyond my capacity, unless I totally surrender to these three steps, my recovery can't start. And unless and until I do it, without reservation, I can't take the first step. The first step is really going to ask me to deal with all those thinking thoughts in my mind. That's the when I spiritual malady will be looked at. That's when I talk about my resentments and my fears and everything. But unless and until I understand and I turn my life over to God, well, I am nowhere. Having said all that, and as an introduction, I'm going to turn this meeting over to Philip for his usual brilliant comments. And before I do that, thank you, Philip, for taking us through this Back to Basics workshop. God bless you, Philip. Thank you so much. Please over to you, Philip.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are. You're in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Philip, and I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm having the privilege of doing this workshop with you, which is a great comfort to me, and it reassures me that this program really works. I was a person who a couple of decades back, who was drinking to die, and today I sit here on a platform where I'm able to talk about my disease and how I recovered from an hopeless state of body and mind. So welcome to our workshop, and I would like to welcome all our newcomers over here. That's so nice of you to turn up here. And could I have a hands up from all the newcomers who are here today, who are in their first 5 or 6 months of sobriety, or even a year of sobriety, or people who have not worked the program and are wanting to work the program? Could I have a hands up for them, please? There you go. You have Sandeep, Abhinav, Randall, Suresh, Varun, Chitanzu, Ravi Daradun, Tejas M, Shanu, Sushil Kumar, Irene, Vijay DC, Sam D, Joe Kenneth, Vasant NG. Thank you guys for turning up. I hope it helps. Unless I work this program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't have a life. My life was gone. It was miserable. But here I am in Alcoholics Anonymous, and why do I need Alcoholics Anonymous is something that I need to ask myself. First, because I was an alcoholic. And who is an alcoholic? Any individual who cannot guarantee his or her behavior after they picked up that first drink is essentially an alcoholic. Did I choose to be an alcoholic? No, I didn't choose to be an alcoholic. It was a genetic disorder. I was born with it, and I was a disaster waiting to happen. So how do I find out if I'm an alcoholic or not? See, there are various questionnaires here, and there's a way of looking at it. Now I'll be running you through the first 3 steps and then touching on to step 4, which I will be taking on next week, or we will be doing it together. So when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't know that, drinking was my problem. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous for all the wrong reasons. I read the word anonymous, and I thought these guys are going to teach me how to drink anonymously. I had, of course, the world knew I had a drinking problem, but if I could, avoid it from the world, then, I didn't have a problem. So that's what it was. I was the intellectual guy who came to Alcoholics Anonymous to sober up, only to find out that I was an alcoholic. And I needed to work a program if I had to stay stopped. So when the doctor says that, we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body of an alcoholic is quite abnormal as his mind. So the body of an alcoholic is as abnormal as his mind. It is not satisfied to be told that we cannot control our drinking because we were maladjusted to life. That we were in full flight from reality, or we ought to outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, but we are sure that our bodies were as sickened as well. Now that's a doctor's opinion from page 25 of the doctor's opinion, Roman letters. Now, this is what the doctor says. So I'm bodily and mentally different from other people. I had a maladjusted personality. I had a, problem with reality, dealing with reality. I was from a full flight of reality. Why did I drink? I drank because I didn't know how to deal with the thoughts that I had. So it says here that my sickness centers in my head, and my sickness centers in my head because I have a thinking sickness. So the action of these alcoholics, chronic alcoholics, is a manifestation of an allergy. That this phenomenon of craving is limited to the class that never occurs in an average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. To accept this was very, very difficult. But this is the doctor's opinion. It's not my opinion. I have a mental obsession, a physical allergy, and a spiritual bankruptcy. A mental obsession, a mind that always thought about alcohol. It was obsessed with the thought of alcohol. 24/7, 365 days. Every day I woke up to the dread of, thinking of alcohol. God, I got to get through another day. I don't want to drink, but I have to drink. That's the obsession. And I go to drink. Why do I go to drink? I go to drink because I cannot handle the thoughts that run through my head, the guilt, the shame, the remorse, and the words that go with it. So this is a mental obsession. The physical allergy is a part where, I take up a drink and then, I can't stop. One drink is too many and 100 are too little. The moment I take a drink, there is a receptor in my system that is activated. And no matter how much I drink, until I pass out, I cannot stop. Now, if you have any of these symptoms, probably you are an alcoholic. But as we move along on this workshop, you'll get a better understanding of this. And for those newcomers who come in, I hope you have the PDFs. If you have the PDFs, you can get a small booklet like this, which is bound up. It's got about 36 pages. And you can work it on your, all you need is a pencil and an eraser to sit down with us and, work it out on your own. So it makes it easier for you. So when I was talking about the physical allergy and the mental, the spiritual bankruptcy, what is a spiritual bankruptcy? Spiritual bankruptcy, according to me, is I am abnormal and I do not do what normal people do, like getting up in the morning, having a bit of coffee, having a chat at home. I don't take to reality very well. I don't know how to treat others, including myself. So, spiritually, I am, dead, almost dead. And how do I keep my spirit going is, by having that drink, that spirit from the bottle, So here the book says lack of power was my dilemma. So spiritual bankruptcy, the mental obsession, the physical allergy, and the spiritual bankruptcy. Oh my God, what a malady that is. How did I live through that? I didn't know. I started drinking very early in age, about 12 or 13. But long before I started drinking, I could see the unmanageability of my life. I didn't fit in. Like the book talks that I had a maladjusted personality, and I didn't know what to do with life. I was dyslexic. I went to a school where, I just didn't like going to school, where most people enjoyed going to school. I dreaded school. I dreaded authority. I dreaded looking at books. And this is not normal. I was good in sports, but if I didn't get the chance to be the first in the game, I didn't want to play the game. If it was dramatics, I was a good talker, but if I was not given the key role, I didn't want it. Now, these were the sort of maladies that I was going on in my head. I was maladjusted to life. I didn't fit in. I was not happy. I was full of fear, remorse, and guilt most of the time, and fear ruled my life. So to get rid of this spiritual malady that I was going through at that age, at about age 13 or 14, I got into touch with alcohol. And boy, what a reprieve, what a release, And I'll read it out. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it's injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, discontented. Unless they can again experience that sense of comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks, which they see others take with impunity, after they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, the phenomenon of craving develops. They pass through that well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, which is change. Unless he can experience a psychic change, there is very little hope for its recovery. On the other hand, strange as it may seem, those who understand once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seems doomed, who has so many problems he despaired over ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. That was again from the doctor's opinion. And now, so we're going to talk about these a few simple rules, And what is my alcoholism all about? It's about the unmanageability of my life, lacking of coping skills. I lacked perspective in life. I was an immature human being, bodily and mentally. I was different from other people. My body reacted differently to alcohol, and my thought process was different from normal people. So the abnormality had to be accepted, and I couldn't accept that abnormality because, what would people think? The social stigma attached to it. I had a grown-up body with an immature mind. My emotional maturity was that of a 12-year-old when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's not a good balance. People expected me to act my age. But I wasn't. I was a kid in my insides, So it was very, very difficult. And alcohol was the only release I got from this insane sort of life that I had to lead, not because of my making. It was not of my making. I was born that way. I was born to become a disaster. I was a disaster waiting to happen. So as the disaster happened and it progressed, people started moving away from me. I started secluding myself. I started drinking alone. I started going off to places where, people wouldn't notice me. I would vent my emotions on my parents and the loved ones. All the things that I did fell on my loved ones. I hurt the ones I loved the most. My whole family became dysfunctional because of that. I was the eldest of 4 in the house, and all attention was focused on me. My mother was my enabler, and she tried everything in the book to get me sober: religion, medicine, and psychiatry. I didn't want to do it, but she took me there, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. So here I was at age 32, after having lost everything, and the battle was between me and life. I was fighting for my life. I was on my deathbed. And that is where, I will just zoom ahead and say, I'll go to the chapter where it says, lack of power was my dynamic. My power. I didn't have power. Alcohol gave me power, for a moment. But that power was also just ebbing off. And soon I was drinking to die. I knew I didn't have an escape. I was condemned to drink against my own will. There was an hapless, insane obsession that overpowered me, that nothing in the world could stop me from going and picking up that drink. So great was that obsession. It almost killed me. I was on my deathbed when, I had to choose whether I wanted to live. All our basic instinct is instinct of survival. And that is a God-given instinct that has kept me going. It just reinstated and it kicked back and said, Philip, do you want to live or you want to die? But I didn't have a choice here. My free will or my will was imprisoned by the chemical alcohol. Alcohol is only an abstract. It's only a mood-altering chemical, but it had power over me, such relentless power over me that it demonized me. So here I was, I had to choose, and that's where the first step came in. And I had to be utterly honest with myself. To the core of my beginning, I had to be, honest with myself and say, Philip, do you really want to live or do you want to live or die? Here's a choice you have, man. Make your choice. If you want to live, go and accept the fact that you're an alcoholic and your life is unmanageable. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, like I said, for all the wrong reasons, but I accepted the fact that I had a drinking problem and my life was totally berserk. I lacked coping skills. I lacked perspective. I lacked the enthusiasm or the will to live. I lacked the will to fight. I gave up on everything. I conceded, to the fact that, people, places, and things had power over me and I was nothing. That was the dirt of it, my dignity. I had sold my soul to the devil. I had no self-respect, self-worth, self-esteem, nothing. The sad part is I didn't choose it. And that is why, as an alcoholic, people say, why me? Why me? Why do I have to go through this? What is this God that I'm talking about? Where is this God? If there be a God, why the hell am I going through all this? I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to be a pain to anyone. I don't want to be a source of embarrassment to my parents and to my colleagues and friends and family. And I had to do it in the bitterness of this sickness of alcoholism. I had to live it through that, through the humiliation, the pain that came out of it. You must be wondering why Philip is talking about all this. People talk about hell. If this is not hell, what is it? I couldn't sleep at night. I was living a nightmare with my eyes wide open. I couldn't close that eye. That nightmare was there. It was continuous. Every day it was a continuation. And to get out of that, I was told, accept the fact that you're an alcoholic and your life is unmanageable. Yes, stopping drinking was not my problem, they told me. Staying stop was my problem. So to stay stopped, I had to do a few things they were going to tell me about. So I stopped drinking. They said, Philip, now you should realize that your problem centers in your mind. Your alcoholism is but an outward manifestation of an inward disorder. Outward manifestation of an inward disorder. So whatever I was doing, showing and all that, it's an outward manifestation of a khichdi inside me, of a disorder inside me, a turmoil inside me. Since I couldn't, cope with it, I had to drink and I had to do all this, the drama that I had to do. Did I really want it? Actually, I was a coward. I didn't have the guts to do anything, minus alcohol. I was like a worm squirming around. I was like a snake with its belly on the floor. Even everything about me was even lower than that. That's how it was. So when I accepted that I was powerless over alcohol and my life was unmanageable, and the first time in my life, I understood that it was my unmanageability of life that made me drink. So alcohol was only the tip of the iceberg. It was only, inward. It's only the tip of our inward disorder, which it was manifesting itself, showing me that, So when I stopped drinking, and if I had to stay stopped, I had to address this unmanageability. My mind was a toxic place, very, very toxic place. It was a very bad neighborhood, going in there alone. It's like walking, and you see it in the American Hollywood movies, You walk in on that street and anyone could come and bear you or kill you or do whatever. My head was like that neighborhood. They told me, don't go there alone. Take someone with you when you're going there. It's an X-rated place. By now, I had stayed sober for, say, about 2 months, 3 months. And, I was getting confidence on myself. I was learning to understand things. And yet my mind would be, in classrooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would be judging people. But all this done, I was staying sober. I was not picking up a drink. And, that happiness knew no bounds. I wanted more of it. I wanted more of it. And they told me, Philip, if you want more of it, you need to work the program. Start working on your unmanageability. And the rest of the 12 steps is all about working my unmanageability. If I didn't have coping skills, I had to develop new coping skills. I had to understand that life is not what Philip thought it was. Life is not what Philip thought, that a pond in which, or in a frog in a well. The theory of frog in a well is, a frog that is born in a well sees only the round on top, the radius of the well's mouth. And he thinks that is the world above him. Until he comes out of that, well, and starts seeing the world around him. And so I was like a frog in the well who was pulled out. And now, if I didn't develop coping skills, the snakes and the other animals were going to get me. So I had to develop my honing skills. I had to hone up my survival skills. There was another thing they told me, you're not a survivor. You were a survivor as long as you were drinking. You survived day to day. Now you need to start living. And for the first time in my life, I was living. I thought I was living, or so I thought. But then untreated alcoholism is more dangerous than when you are drunk. I'm like a monkey with a garland. Monkey is given a garland. A garland is It gives you a sense of worth, self-worth, appreciation, goodwill, all those things. But give to a monkey, what does a monkey know? It's like that. So when I got sobriety, it was like a monkey with a garland. I didn't know what to do with it. So time and again, I would stumble. So they told me, Philip, lack of power was your dilemma. You need to find a path that's going to sustain you. Alcohol was that path that sustained you. When you felt low and out, when you felt that you are not capable of handling things, and when the stress and the onus of the world got to you, what did you do? You took a drink, and like I read, that ease and comfort that comes with that drink came to me. And I would float into oblivion, only to come back to the dread of the deadly horsemen that they call in Alcoholics Anonymous, and get up to the dreams of, guilt, shame, remorse, and all those things that wake me up in the morning. I didn't want to live. So if I had to maintain a balance in life, I had to find a source by which I could live. Now, if you want to drive a petrol engine car, you need to put petrol into it. You can't put diesel into it. You can drive it maybe once or twice, but after that, the engine is going to give up. So I had to find a source by which I could survive. Alcohol was a source. Now, that does not work for me. So I had to find a source. So lack of power was my dilemma. Earlier, before that, I said, to choose between an alcoholic death or spiritual way of life were not easy alternatives to face. I had to choose that, whether I wanted to live or I wanted to die. So when I chose I wanted to live, came the option that if you want to live, you need to find a source by which you can maintain your spirituality. And spirituality was something that, I had a spiritual illness, a spiritual malady. It's said in the book that spiritual malady arises from me not trying to understand life or not being able to cope with life the way normal people could cope with life. Normal people are born with coping skills. They can cope with life, but with me, I couldn't do that. So I had to find a source. And they told me the best source was the classrooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, where people found themselves with God. Now, another thing that they told me, and which I read also a little earlier, was, the moment, why was I feeling happy? What was this thing that happened to me that made me the person I was, in the first 3 months or 4 months of getting into Alcoholics Anonymous? Happiness. And happiness is an inside job. I had found a source by which I could stop drinking. I had found a source by which, I could stay stopped. And how did this happen? This happened because, I was shown into the classrooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, where there was through a divine intervention. Divine intervention means it is a miracle for an alcoholic like me, who was, the world had condemned and I had condemned to drink and die, to be brought into a classroom or brought into a room where there were people who said there is hope for the hopeless. Every time I went, they said, keep coming back. So this was a divine intervention. For the first time in my life, I found a group of people who didn't judge me or didn't want to judge me, who wanted to reach out and help me. I've been drunk in a few of those meetings and they didn't condemn me. They didn't point a finger at me and say, don't come back here. They told me that, you're protected by the third tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous, which states the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Wow. What a peace of mind. These guys can't do that. So this was a divine intervention that brought me here. And through that, there was a profound personality change. When you say a profound personality change, it is my willingness to want to learn to live like a human being, not like an inhuman being. God created me as a human being with dignity and honors. I had lost it on the journey of my life till the age of 31, 32. I once was lost, but now I'm found, and I didn't want to lose myself. I didn't want to lose myself. So there was this divine intervention, which, had made me have a profound personality change in my thinking, the way, the outlook up to life, outlook towards the way I behave, the way I should be. I stopped living my life for other people. People pleasing was still a part of my life. I wanted to fit in. That thing was always there. I always, tried to exhibit something I was not, all the pretenses that I have, the masks that I had to wear. A lot of them fell off. I didn't have to lie. I didn't have to cheat. I didn't have to do things I did when I was drinking. We have something called the character defects, and I'll come to a little later where we go to the checklist, assets and liabilities that I had. Most of them were because of my drinking. The moment I stopped drinking, a lot of them just left away. So I started addressing my unmanageability, and then I had to find that, the second step says, finding a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And I found this power in the classrooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, believe me, I was taken to churches, temples, mosques, wherever, so that I could stay sober. I used to go myself, to churches thinking that, some miracle would happen and I would be saved. I've seen people bargaining in churches, mosques, and temples. God, if you get me this, I'll give you this. And to me, it didn't make any sense. If this is a God that is doing a barter system, then he's not God. And when they told me about God, it didn't appeal to me. Until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and they said, Philip, the God that has saved you is a God that loves you. If he didn't love you, he wouldn't save you in the first place. True, you've been through your bad patches in life. Who does not? The sponsor I had said, don't ask that question, why me? Just ask the question, why not me? Why am I different? Don't I have 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes? I don't have a nose, 2 ears? Yes, my thinking is different and radical, but that can be righted. And that is why God has brought you into this fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. There are so many stories of all people who have gone haywire, berserk in life. I've read stories from the Bible about it, great kings, great men, But when you look at their real life stories, they were as human as you and me. They're womanizers, they were stealers, they have murdered people. But why are they remembered? They're remembered because they rose above their adversity. They rose above their, infirmities, their, bad, whatever character defects or flaws they had. They rose above it and served God. So when I look at myself, I've been through all this. Now God is giving me a chance to rise above all these things, my character defects or what people think about me or the bad name I might have or I think I might have, to rise above it and be the person that can help God in his work in saving the lives of those I might help in his name. That's what the third step prayer is all about. What a wonderful thing. So this God, from an unloving God, it became a loving God. I just understood the shift, He was training me or he was grooming me, to be the person I am to be today. So whatever I went through was not of waste. Yes, I had my stubborn side, which I said, this is the way I would like to live life. This is the way I would like my life to be. That is my will. Now, when my will failed me, what did do? God put in a bait and said, take this bait. And if you can, join my will to your will, you will live. So fear of dying and fear of having tried all my ways. And when God gave me that option, I grabbed it with all my, and for that, I needed humility. I needed honesty. I needed willingness. And with that, God's will matched my will. And, I was sober. So step happened that way. A power greater than me restored me to sanity. And I started believing that this is a loving God after all. It's me and my worldly thinking and the greed of my flesh that makes me think that God is not taking care of me. If I didn't get what I wanted when I wanted it, I was angry with God. If I didn't get the alcohol I required, I was angry with God. If I didn't get the girl that I wanted, I was angry with God. Now, is God to blame for all my infirmities? Is God to blame? Today I started asking that question. No, he was not. A lot of it was my own self-will. Self-will run riot. Instincts on rampage. So who was to blame? So when I understood, what part I played in this drama of life this far, where I wanted to be the director, the actor, the audience, everything all in one. Life revolved around me. Oh my God, that's a bad place to be in. So where would serenity or peace be in me? Peace of mind. There was this committee in my head that was eating me up all the time. So when I was restored to sanity over a drink, I was restored to sanity over my drinking problems, I started believing in this power greater than myself that had restored me to that decision. And now I was to make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of the same power that has, looked after me this far. There's a story of, footprints in the sand. Those of you who have the ability, just note it down. It's called Footprints in the Sand. You can Google it. And it's a typical way of saying, how God took care of me. Me and God were walking the beach together. You could see two pairs of feet moving on the sand. Suddenly, there is only one pair of feet. And a little further, you see, there again, those 2 feet started walking, or 2 pairs of feet started walking again. So that is me and God walking. And when I saw this single set of feet, I asked God, God, why didn't you lift me up? Why only one set of feet? You abandoned me, and that patch of life. Why did you abandon me? Where there should have been 2 sets of feet, there's only 1 set. That means you left me and I was left to fend for myself. But again, later on, there are 4 sets of seats. So he said, son, the way you look at it is not what had happened. Yes, we walked together. And when you see 1 set of feet, you weren't able to walk. You were too tired and I had to carry you across. No, that made absolute sense. That was what God did. He carried me across when I couldn't do it on my own. God was not to blame. I had to clear this. Either God is everything or God is nothing. I had to, authenticate to myself and stamp it on my head saying that, I am a believer. It says we were reborn. I had to be reborn into a new way of life, into a new way of thinking. And without God's help, I cannot do it. Based on my resources, or the best of my resources, is what got me into Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, if I wanted to live, if I wanted to be happy, joyous, and free, which is the aim of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have to find that source. So I had to turn my will and my life. What is my will? What is my life? My will is what I talked about, what I wanted to be, where I wanted to be, who I wanted to be. My will is what got me into Alcoholics Anonymous. The pain, the trauma, the muscling, the manipulation, the conniving for Philip, And what is my life? All this that I just talked about that happened in my life through the conniving, the manipulation, the pain I brought on others, life that was led astray. There's a story of the prodigals, and I was like that. I was out in the world, going to fend for myself and enjoying the flats of the land until I could sustain myself no more, and I had to come back. So I was taken back into the fold. I was created by God to be of use to me and to another human beings, but I was never of use to anybody, including me. Like I said, I was not living, I was just surviving on a day-to-day basis. Those of you who are alcoholics like me would resonate with that. So I handed over my past and my future, which was weighing me down. That is my will, that is my future, and my past, which is my guilt, shame, and remorse. I hand it over to God. Just imagine what a burden that is when I give it to God and I trust God's going to take care of it. There is going to be a big reprieve, like when you first came to Alcoholics Anonymous and stopped drinking, and you get into that pink cloud stage, where everything seems to be growing great, when you hand over this will and life over to God, there again, you'll find that release. You'll find God's favor in you, you'll find that strength to move on. So I hand over my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. Now I need to ask myself, was this one question, did I find God or did God find me? It doesn't really matter. Because when God created me, he created a masterpiece, a perfect human being. I found flaws in my life. I started comparing myself to others. And in comparison, that I found that I didn't have what he has and I didn't have what she has. It was my problem, not God's problem. When God created me, he created a perfect human being. When God creates a blind man, God creates a perfect human being. I see that difference. So I'm seeing that God is a defective piece. No, God is not. God is perfect. And God is the most omnipotent. That is what I understand now, So if I could understand God, then he is not my God. God is beyond my own comprehension. I just can't imagine. He could come in any time, shape, color. He could be of any faith. God didn't create religion. God didn't create faith. As an alcoholic, you and I know it. We all talk about the same God, that power greater than ourselves, that has restored us to sanity and put us on a pedestal to start living life on life's terms. So here I am, handing it over to God, blindly. I have to take a 180-degree turn. If I go straight, I'm going into destruction and death. So I had to take an about turn, a 180. I'm turning over my will. I'm going to take that chance, that leap of faith, that I've survived this far, from a helpless, hopeless, useless human being, a drunk, to a person who's going to take an about turn and going to see what life has to offer him. And that's a very bold decision for an alcoholic like me. Made a decision. Decision was my major problem. I couldn't decide for myself, for the love of God, what I wanted in life, or who I wanted to be in life, where I wanted to be. Nothing. I couldn't make any decisions on my own. My will, my life was bounded by my obsession for alcohol, my love for alcohol. So I was not the person I thought I was. Then who was I? So if I want to continue my journey in sobriety, I have to find out the person who I am, the person I was running away from, and that was me. I was running away from myself. I didn't like me. We talked about a maladjusted personality. We need maladjusted to life, the inferiority complex, lesser than others, mentally destituted. That's what the book says. I was a mental case. I was, for the first time in my life, willing to look at myself. And for that, if I had to go the rest of the 12 steps, 4 to 8, I need to work on that. Fourth step says, made a fearless moral inventory of myself. I'm making a fearless moral inventory. So what is a fearless moral inventory, and why do I have to do it? If what I have talked to you has resonated with you so far, you should realize that I'm a sick human being. And my sickness centers in my head. My subconscious mind and my conscious mind are two very powerful mediums through which I live. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions in the subconscious mind and conscious mind, which I have to clear. There's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of remorse, there's a lot of anger, frustration, resentments that are all caged up in my head. If I don't filter those out, if I don't get rid of those or work on those, I'm surely going to go and drink. I won't be enjoying this peace of mind or this reprieve that I have today. They say all we have is a daily reprieve contingent to our spiritual condition. No, spirituality is living the life that God wants me to live. That's being honest, open-minded, willingness. But inside, I'm a cheat. I'm a con artist. I have all the bad habits possible, and I hide it with a mask. I had to get rid of these masks. I had to get rid of these hidden, unwanted thoughts and experiences that I had. These monkeys that were having a turmoil, in my head had to be sorted out. They say, I killed the monkey, but the circus is still in town. So I stopped drinking, but the circus has to be addressed. So next week, we'll be talking about, how we could look into ourselves and see how we can get this daily reprieve and be happy, joyous, and free. Freedom from the bondage of alcohol, you got that. Freedom from the bondage of fear, you're working on it. And freedom from the bondage of self. That is what the program promises us. I get out of myself, I'm free, I'm freedom. I don't care what happens to me. What other people think about me is none of my business. I need to reach that state. That's what the serenity prays. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I cannot change the people and the world around me. I cannot change the ambience. I cannot change the weather, nothing. Courage to change the things I can. I can accommodate myself in these things and situations. And the wisdom to know the difference. Wisdom, it comes from experience. Knowledge plus experience is wisdom. I had the knowledge, but I didn't have the experience. But I've been through the pain, the trauma, and now Alcoholics Anonymous gives me the knowledge of what alcoholism is and how I can use my alcoholism to my advantage. That's the main thing. How I can use these shortcomings or the things that I've been through to my advantage. So next Saturday, we'll be talking on step 4. And those of you who have any fear or any misunderstanding about this step, or what we need to do further, you're free to ask questions, or you can call me after any day time during the course of the week, and we could confer on each other. But if you made a start, please move ahead. Please move ahead, because it's your life in the end. It's not about anybody else. It's up to your life. So take charge of your life, which God has given you. And believe me, you have a loving God who is behind you. Thank you. Good luck. God bless. Thank you. Over to you, Hanuman.
Thank you so much, Philip. Brilliant as usual. What a summing up. Great. Applaud. Yes, guys, anybody want to come ahead and ask any questions, make any comments on the first, second, and third step, which is liberation, first steps of liberation from alcoholism? Anybody?